coming here was a bit of a thrill this evening with no trains, and taking the bus over Waterloo Bridge, which I haven't done now for a long, long time because I've moved out of London more or less. And I was reminded of the collaboration with Gillie and Jenny at Waterloo's St John's when we did one of our sort of theatre pieces, which was linked to the jazz piece Kind of Blue, and we called it Waterloo Sunrise. So I thought I'd do you two poems, one poem from Waterloo Sunrise and one closely related. When I call on Claude Monet, he waves his arms and smokes, gestures, doesn't speak much English, doesn't like to talk. 8 weeks he spends at the Savoy, a new hotel close by the bridge. The upper rooms look out across the Thames, equips one as his studio, gets up at dawn to work. This time of year, that's touching 6 o'clock. I want to paint the air the bridge fits in, the envelope. His subject's usually in coloured fog, but sometimes lets him down. Sunday, the 3rd of February, he wrote to Alice. Not a wisp of fog, and naturally, no factory smoke. Up came the sun, so dazzling I couldn't see a thing against the Thames, lit up all gold. God, it was beautiful. The sun and its reflections very fine. I worked till 9 in frenzy, 4 paintings begun. If only we could write poems that fast. 2 winters on, he's home at Giverny, completing work on 41 of those fog-clouded cliff-edge views. He has the viewer search along, above, beyond, before, beneath. Out there to factory chimneys, docks. Here, traffic into town, Covent Garden carts and cabs, gigs, buses full of hats, lamplit queues. While down beside the middle arches of the bridge, craft push like heavy fish. The little garden bridge he's built across his ponds is one sole curve, one span, one rounded reach through space. It lifts the floating world to meet the eye. Water flowers to reflected cloud. It clasps the light of water to the light of sky. What matters? Not the bridge itself, but what it shapes, fusing eye and mind with place. So there we are, down on the river. Last day at the Savoy. Would you send the maid away, Jimmy, and sing your Russian hymn? I liked that, love. Yes, 1 verse was enough. Tell me, the little cabman, is he there with his grey horse, waiting at the railing round the grass? Would you recall for me how good things smell, baking in the Rue du Bac? I cannot quite remember. And those 2 pigeons never leave. You must be keeping them in crumbs, immortals on our balcony. Look after them. The river mist is closing in. I think I see a thumbprint on the sky. Is that the old night's moon? I dreamed you hailed a painted boat out on the Thames, a boat to row me home, upstream.
I have to say, when you've got a wonderful editor who's singing your praises like this, it's, Michael Schmidt at Carcanet, I mean, if you can get one word out of him, it's probably fairly negative, actually. How many books have you sold? That's the sort of way of looking at it. So I grew up in Ethiopia, and that's one of the things I love about Gillie's work, is how widely it travels. Much wider than my work, because I tend to sort of just go back to Ethiopia every time I'm, sort of lifting a pen or going on the computer. My first book about Ethiopia was very sort of upbeat. In this book, Tenderfoot, I wanted to look at things which made me uncomfortable. And the main thing was hunger, because we were sitting in Addis Ababa, we had a cook, we had a wonderful lifestyle and wonderful food. And basically everybody around us had wonderful food as well. But we knew that there was a famine going on in the hills, and there were beggars and there were poor boys. So this first poem is a little bit downbeat, but anyway, it's me trying to look at the reality of the place I grew up in. It's called Good Bread, and it's for my friend Abebe in memory. Still warm and spongy, almost wet, a circle of injera on the meso sits in my mind's eye and goes with me, reaching its gentle hand into my head. It makes me think about the day your father took us to a market in the hills, that red-eyed roadside boy, furiously begging to be fed. Do any of us really understand, Abebe, how finger-close a boy can be and still have nothing of the world's good bread? To the teeming bookshops of Addis Ababa. A thirst for knowledge being one of the most urgent. Do you see this brushstroke racing along Arat Kilo, up the length of Wingate into Piazza? If stopped, either by his shirt tails flying, or a hand on his athlete's shoulder, or his thoughts also flying, he would say a rumour reached him, too loud for daydreams, that a new translation of Rimbaud's Le Bateau Ivre is hitting the choppy water of your shelves. Although he already owns a tattered copy in the French, two more in English, one of Omer's holy status in Amharic, Yesekere Merkab. To see the same loved, breathing body of the poem behind the gauze of each reworking only adds to his excitement. Knowledge not in facts, but in the energy of words, racing from language to language, bookshop, laptop, on their bare feet, fitter and leaner and faster the more they're taken into the thin air of the mountains and stretched. That's it, thank you.
The glockenspiel drone of the public address. The klaxon of the buggy as it scuttles to a standstill, drops its bodies off, picks its way through the sleeping corpses, those corralled amongst their luggage for protection, those vulnerably alone, slowly shedding outer garments, faces stuffed grotesquely into soiled makeshift pillows. Line by line, the screens are going blank. One number and one mocking destination, one winking blood-red legend. Vuelo retrasado, espera información. Rain dribbles through the never-finished roof, sheets across the sky, the empty tarmac. Then the air conditioning expires. The travellators stop. Women stare distractedly at vouchers for a restaurant that's shut. The men brandish boarding cards and passports like trumps in a trick they've long since lost. The gate attendants cluck to one another. If approached, they might dispense a careless shrug. They know little of our language, but can say, there is no information you can have. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Your outraged face appalled at my 5 tiles. The telly's looping pictures from Ukraine. The board is quaking quietly at your bile. What the hell is incry? It's incry, I counter. But although I truly feel I'm right, I know I cannot tell you why I ever thought the wretched word was real. Already you're a Google and attacking. A Gallic heavy metal group, disbanded. A proper noun to boot. Now you're re-racking my rejected letters whilst one-handed furiously crossing out my score. I'm hopeless, but I've nothing left to lose. It's the opposite of outcry. Sure, now show me the dictionary you'll use. Now, I shout whilst leafing through the rules. A universally held but unvoiced sense of anger, turmoil, fear, or disapproval. But I can only find those riffing French. Does not exist in English. No such word. The television switches scene to Yemen. You start to place your letters on the board, and with disdain, I watch you use all 7.
But
what I love about the title is it characterises the beautiful sort of playful self-deprecatingness of the book, which offers us, I think Gillie's work offers a sort of pathway for living. She has an incredible way of seeing the world, which is both a sort of forensic detail, noticing the smallest things, the dirt on the skirting board, or you know, the tiny shimmers and glimmers of light. She sees the world. And then she gives us incredible poems that help us navigate our way through it, with royal joy and warmth and humanity. But it's never bombastic, because there's always this sort of playful sense that she might be wrong. She's just offering us a tentative playbook for living better. But when I work with Gillie, and when I look at Gillie, I think, you know, what an incredible example of how to live brilliantly and be alive in the world, in the truest sense, how to see the world around you, and how to be the storyteller of the tribe. I remember once I was doing an interview, it was quite a tricky interview to do, with Derek Walcott about his work, and he turned to me very seriously at one moment and just said, never forget what it means to be the storyteller of the tribe. Every society needs people to tell stories. And Gillie is that for many of us. She is somebody who looks at everything going on in the world and helps us make sense of it, often with a delicacy and a joy that I think is formidable. So over to Gillie to read from her brand new, hooray, book.
Thank you, Helen. Oh, she's the queen of the amazing introductions. Really and truly. Just, don't recognise myself at all in this episode, however. Anyway, I want to thank everybody who's here. I really do think it's wonderful you all made it through strikes, and the last lot, which should have happened and didn't happen and became a Zoom and then became this and then it struck again. And anyway, never mind. I think you're all wonderful, and thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to read, obviously, from the book, but because I have terrible eyesight, especially since having a cataract operation, I'm going to read from a very large printout. So, the book is, I suppose, more than the other ones, they're sort of like little fillets of my life, I think. And I'm going to read a couple from each section, and the first section is called Spore. Now, can you hear me properly? And I'm not too close and I'm not popping, so I hope that that's... And the first poem is called, I'll just say that I was born and brought up in India, and it's still a very, very much a part of me. And so this is where it begins, really. So the first one is called The Ground Glass Windows. Every time I go back, I realize I've never left. And if it's gone, am I a ghost? I see the stone water tank reflecting a jigsaw sky, the gravel driveway encircling the lawn, its islands of rock. The banyan tree hangs out its aerial roots, combing through the light. Crows round my head, even thousands of miles away, I hear them day and night. I sit on steps leading to the terrace, wondering if they are descendants. But if this is my dream, they are the same inquisitives, cocking intelligent eyes, the same brain fever birds, raising their scales skyward in raucous panic. I pick up seed pods from the gulmahar tree, hear the burble of a comforting language. No longer forbidden, I peer into the high, dark kitchen, smelling of charcoal and childhood. Back in the safety of the nursery, only if I don't open the door with the ground glass window, beyond which maybe nothing exists. But this time, I open it, step through onto the veranda. Without breath, I move to my parents' rooms at the far end. Open the door with the ground glass window. There's nothing there. And if it's gone, am I a ghost? And can I ever leave? I can fly. Although the youngest daughter, I can fly. higher than the palm trees beside the Arabian Sea. I can fly stronger than the eagle, silent as the kite, further than the national airline, whose nose I put out of joint, whose nose I snub, whose nose I fly up with the bird of paradise when I pass on invisible wings. I can fly away from bullies and bulletins, skyscrapers, mountain peaks, other people's egos far below mine. I am the youngest daughter. Watch me fly. It's very liberating to write. The next two are from the second section and sort of my travels. So the first is called Hostile Hotel. He had the hairiest shoulders, would sit behind the counter stroking his fur for hours, dismissive of his customers, unsmiling in their presence, impolite to their requests. I only want quiet, he said. He stocked the fridge with eggs, processed cheese, tea bags, instant coffee, chilies, bread and olives. We could serve or eat them in the cavernous beach cafe. I only want quiet, he said. Extended families crammed into the bedrooms, cooked on the cement floors, ate off overturned wardrobes, denied everything, scarpered, taking the light bulbs. I only want quiet, he said. One day he left us to work at his uncle's ice cream factory. We welcomed the tubs of vanilla he added to the kitchen freezer. Then he gave us sledgehammers to smash the place up. And this happened while touring in Brazil, and we were being hosted in this particular place by a group of American missionaries. It's called Laughing with the Cashier in a Foreign Language. On one-night stands, none of us has small coins for small purchases exchanged in good humour. The buttoned-up missionaries hurried towards us, convinced we actors must surely be talk-taking without asking. Luckily, not offence at the assumption oozing from their mouths like treacle. Winking at the checkout girl, we hand her an unbroken greenback for our bananas. Obrigado, adios, goodbye. The missionaries listen uncomprehendingly to the gleeful cashier's boas pessoas. Then shadow us out into the sun, narrowing their eyes against the light. It really was lock up the silver here coming. Kindling. Did you swallow a star at birth? When the midwife wrapped you, did she secretly mark your brow with oil, so the wet nurse would know and suckle you a molten sun? Drawn to your heat, I orbit you, shivering with incomprehension, humming music of the spheres you probably can't hear above the roar of flame inside you, visible in your eyes. Sparks flare from the sockets, causing turmoil in skies and seas. I feel you passing. I feel you passing. O ashes, O dust, O earth. And the next one is tabernacled. If you hold my hands, how will I catch the falling? If I close my eyes, will you assume the darkness? If you can't hear me, should I rehearse the song? If I stay silent, will you complete my words? If you confess me, will I become worth saving? If I disagree, will you want me disfigured? If you turn your back, can I climb on your shoulders? If I hold your hands, how will you catch the falling? Microcosmic. Tiny gods buzz about or hover on iridescent wings. At any moment, they might reveal themselves, tower over the world. become the infinite sky. Section 5, ebb and flow. Failure harmonic. I can't play an instrument. Each one I tried protested so insistently I laid it down to join the others in the bone pit, where they rattle with passing storms or stay silent in quiet times. Inside my head, I hear them sometimes accompanying my lack of harmony. Dark glass. He frets about his isolation, but enjoys no visitors. He keeps the windows shuttered, writes, reads, and reflects in the darkened panes, scowling at the man he sees scowling back at him. "Why don't you leave me alone?" he asks, before punching the glass. The scowling man shatters, but there's blood everywhere. He runs his hand under the tap, watches scarlet swirl down the drain, wonders if he should go up to the hospital. Let a stranger hold his hand. This is 2 from section 6, Rooted, and I apologise, these are very bleak and serious poems. The first, but they're short. The first is called Murder on the Dance Floor, and the title is from a song by Sophie Ellis-Bextor and Greg Alexander, I'm sure you know, which I gather is having a second outing because it's used in the film Saltburn, which I haven't seen. But strangely, the words are quite applicable to, or most of the words are quite applicable to this poem, Murder on the Dance Floor. He floated in. Who could resist? He took her hand and broke the wrist, impressed her body with his fist, slashed through her throat with flick and twist, set fire to any flesh he missed, left laughing with his bucket list of others who must not exist. And that was written for those murdered at the Supernova Music Festival in the pogrom of the 7th of October last year. And this one is called I Inherited a Burden I Did Not Suffer For. It weighs as much as all the pebbles left on all the graves of all the people chosen to be turned into unhumans, turned upon a wheel, shattered as a potter will a misfired crock, turned as a coat on a gaudy farmyard bird, 3 times at the rising, the crowing up of the sun. It rises yeast-like through unguarded stones, daubs intentions onto doors and walls, suffocated slopes where the others died. It takes extreme and center stage, bearing its own unbearable witness, speaking in tongues, lest we forget. Swing time for Venus. Barely balanced on a shell, if the wind rises and the waves swell behind you, no sails, oars or blankets, no outboard motor or cups of cocoa, no life jackets or rubber wings. Shelter is only your hair and hand. Desire gives the wind reason to blow you on shore with only a tease of cover, like the bluster of a matador's cloak, distracting you into the future, where not all rain falls as petals. And leather jackets. She hurries home along the night park, disturbed by indefinable sounds, the creaks, the whisperings. She knows them by the pricking of her thumbs. The other side of the road, they emerge from the shadow of the abandoned gasometer, grinning, sucking testosterone off each other, mouthing the usual commentaries of bodies and intentions. They come across all swagger and jerkin. She keeps walking. They thrust and canter, catch her up, surround her, start the laying on of hands. Her eyes spin from hazel to witchery. A bubble of rage forms in her gut. expands to her subcutaneous edge. She runs, leaps, soars into the sky, looks down on the stunned faces watching her departure. As they recede, her body fills with laughter. You'll be happy to know. The last section, strands. The first one is situated in the West Indies. My aunt lit a cigarette. She said, "Get me out of here. I can't fit inside my own home. Let's go to the middle of the ocean." Out there, surrounded by the deep blue, the seabed shallows up into a circle of turquoise. We could walk around the edge, the depths, lie on our backs, soak in the colours. My aunt lit a cigarette and haggled with the boatman, who put-putted us past turtles and confetti beneath the ripples. We were alone, 3 people, mid-ocean, seabirds, fish. The boat idled, and I slid into liquid sky, floated to the edge, and swam beyond it. Still in the boat, my aunt lit a cigarette. "Did you know your grandmother shot a man?" "She was threatened by a mob. It was hushed up." Casually, she flicked her ash over the bombshell, and I climbed back into the boat. When we left, the boatman gave me a conch. It sits in my garden still, the delicate pink interior dulled by the calc of London rain. And finally, the last poem is firmly rooted in London, definitely, and it's called Water Music. The water was clear and rising. I gave up looking for my shoes floating among the others, or maybe not, maybe sunk to the bottom, paired modestly on the pavement, as if waiting for a bus or a submarine. The water was clear and rising, the temperature perfect. I gave up searching the side streets, forgot what it was I was looking for, and swam towards Warren Street Station, wondering how the water would travel underground, finding its own level, of course. The water was clear and rising, strangely free of flotsam and jetsam, just the occasional briefcase and 1 or 2 bags for life. There was a flash of silver. A shoal of small fish darted out and turned towards the Euston Road. The water was clear and rising through the underpass, flowing into the glassy entrances of UCH, where nurses and orderlies smiled and paddled, and doctors floated on their backs, watching cloud formations and the empty, towering skyline scraping the blue. The water was clear and rising. I could no longer resist the pull, so I duck-dived into the sunlit depths, peering through first-floor windows at abandoned IT and forests of paper undulating in the gentle currents, pot plants rotating off their desks towards the ceiling. The water was clear and rising, with all sorts of useless debris from outlets on the ground floor. Perfume and packaged razors, scented candles, craft beer, high-end handbags, Jimmy Choos, which reminded me I had been looking for my flip-flops a lifetime ago. The water was clear and rising. I descended into commercial penumbra, but nothing looked like something I would need, drifting peacefully down Tottenham Court Road to Soho and Theatreland, checking out empty auditoriums, lighting rigs swaying over broken stages. The water was clear and rising. I dived to the cenotaph, saluted the glorious dead, hung like Harold Lloyd on the arms of Big Ben, looked down upon the Mother of Parliaments, before letting go to old Father Thames, sweeping through bridges and barriers, past unexploded ordnance and sunken hulks, out to the estuary, wide as the sea, the familiar ocean rising overhead, children playing, in their element, arching like dolphins into the air.